wanted to, you should tell by the title of this vlog, this is going to be about the importance of teacher read-alouds, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and here's why. This year has been particularly challenging for teachers, but I mean, my third graders have really struggled, right? And they struggled with communication, they struggled with being in a classroom, being together, being with me, but just clamoring for connection. So, one of my colleagues one time said that, read aloud is just a big academic waste of time. And I thought, God, that couldn't be farther from the truth. I've been teaching a long time, and I've read aloud every year, all the time. I always have a book I'm reading aloud to my students. A chapter book. This is not about, a daily read aloud book, interactive read alouds. This is chapter books. So, one of the things I always loved about that is that you could follow it up with something. And I don't always do something daily after I read aloud, but I wanted to talk just about the reason why we do these things. So one of the things to think about when you're reading aloud a book, and there's three main things. But the first one is, when you choose a book to read aloud to your students, is this a book that other teachers are reading? If you're going to read Wonder, for example, at our school, 5th grade reads Wonder. It's kind of a known thing. Or with 4th grade, you wouldn't read anything that had to do with Gold Rush. I live in California. I work in California. So things like that, the Great Horn Spoon, it's a 4th grade thing. So you have to just check with grade levels, right? What books are you guys reading aloud to your class? So we don't do it. Stuart Little, I think, is 2nd grade at our school. So Stuart Little, no, it's anyway. It's those certain things. So it's really important that they don't get that twice, or if to step on a colleague's toes. So that's a big one. And then is it appropriate for your grade level, right? Is this content going to be kind of going along or collaborating with your not collaborating, that's not the right word, but is it parallel with standards, right? Or content standards, social studies, for example, or with science. And I'll be talking to men about the books I choose to read aloud, and one of them has a lot of science in it, which is weird for a read aloud, but it does. So, and the other one is have I read the book before? I never, ever read a book to my students that I haven't read yet. It's just really, really tricky to do. So you don't want to do that. But it's so refreshing when they see you loving a book, right? It's because they understand the joy of reading. Gosh, I remember one time I was reading a book by Christopher Paul Curtis, and it was supposed to be a follow-up to Elijah Buxton, which I read that book when I taught 5th grade, but I brought it down to 3rd because I loved it so much. But it's really for 5th grade because it's historical fiction for 5th grade. And he's a great author. Man, he's good. He wrote Bud Not Buddy and a slew of other books. Wonderful author. Here's the thing. He had a follow-up book to it that came out many years after called The Madman of Piney Woods. And I told the class, guys, this is supposed to be a follow-up. So we're reading, days pass, and I read probably 30 minutes a day. Days turn into weeks. And finally, I think it was page 200, we finally realize, wow, the Madman of Piney Woods is so-and-so. It's Cooter. And the sheriff in town is like, oh my God. And it was a moment that my class and we just had together, because I hadn't read that book aloud before, right? But I read it to myself. I just didn't connect the dots. And we had that moment together. It was so great. I'll never forget that. And it was just like, I think we bonded at that moment when we realized that. But oh God, it was just so neat. So it's super important for kids to see that reading's not a task. It's not an assignment. It's a free vacation. It's a free trip someplace else. I mean, to get that across to kids, you just have to model it, because frankly, a lot of these kids don't get that modeled at home. They just don't. They don't see their parents read. And if they do see their parents read, a lot of times it's online. They're reading something on the computer, and they're not holding a book in their hands. And it's so that organic sort of way of getting literature. So the second thing is that I tend to stick with authors that I like, and here's why. Kate DiCamillo is a great example. So I'll read The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane is wonderful, but preemptively, I read Because of Winn-Dixie. It's a super quick one that probably takes 2 to 3 weeks to read, and you can do a cast of characters afterwards with a flip book if you want, with I think it's 9 or 10 characters in it. The main character, is anyways, she is a little girl, and she's the protagonist, and she finds this dog and names him Winn-Dixie. But anyway, the whole thing takes place in kind of like the South, which is where the author's from, I believe. I've seen her in an interview, so you guys can correct me on that. But Kate DiCamillo, and so she's written several other books, but I love that because they get familiar with her. They get familiar with her style of storytelling and weaving other characters into it. But then to turn around and do another book by her, which is what we usually do, and talk about that they grow to have a relationship with that author, with that style of reading. We always say that readers have expectations and writers have responsibilities, and that's a great way to teach them that when you stick with an author, right? We expect something this time because we've worked with this author before, right? Worked with her. So I love that. So she's one of my favorites. I already mentioned Christopher Paul Curtis. I think his website is just curtis.com. I'll include that if I can remember to do that. But he's great, and I've seen him interviewed too. We always open the school year with Julie Andrews' The Last of the Really Great Wang Doodles, which is not a popular book, but it's a good one. And it's a great one to start the school year with. So we started with that. And the last part of this, and I think most importantly, is that kids learn how to relate to characters and stories. They've been so isolated, right, for the last year. And now this year, it continues somewhat. I don't think kids are getting together a lot after school like they would. We're not doing field trips yet. So when they can learn about characters and the way those characters handle conflict or handle relationships, it takes them outside of themselves. And it's just, it's invaluable to them when they aren't seeing it in other ways, and helps them to have empathy for one another and understand the characters. And I don't do a lot of writing initially. After we do a lot of discussions, but now after this, as I film this, it's December, so I'm gonna make sure my kids are really doing some visualizations after reading and writing about it, because I think we're there. I've been meeting the kids where they are this year so far. I have not been saying the word behind or at standard or anything like that, because that's not important. I've been doing a lot of socio-emotional exercises with them, and teaching, of course, academics, but that hasn't been the priority. So let me talk about some of the books I read third grade, and I'll provide a list. But some of my favorites I've mentioned already. But this year we read Wild Robot. Wild Robot. Wow, it's incredible. There's so many different themes throughout it, but mostly it's a relationship between a mother and a son. And the mother is a robot, and the son is a bird. The thing about it is, the main character, being a robot, we find out right away is defective because the robot has feelings. And that robot's not supposed to have feelings. That's why it's defective. And it's so counterintuitive to the kids, because they think, well, you should have feelings, and we should have this, and we should feel that. We should. We are not robots. And so there's a second installment of the book called Wild Robot Escapes. I can't go into detail. It's just great. But there's a lot of science in both books. And the author talks a lot about that at the back, just how he conceived the idea. And he illustrates the book as well. And so there's so many things you can incorporate into that too, right? We have a mobile art van that comes to our school and brings things, and we had them the kids make robots out of recycled things. So there's a lot of thematic things you can weave into that. But I like the kids to be able to kind of reflect on that and have discussions about it. And so I I read both books to the kids this year, but I haven't done anything tangible with that, you know, to reflect. But when we get back to school, I'm going to be doing a few of the read louds that I really like for that. So a couple other books I like to read. Thief Lord. A lot of people think that I'm talking about Lightning Thief. No, The Thief Lord. The author's Cornelia Funk. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. It's translated from German. And it's about 5 kids, and 2 of them they're all orphans. But they're running through the streets of Italy, the canals and things like that of Italy. It's really good. And there's a movie that goes with that too. But as far as read louds go, it's, you know, there's just so much that you can do with a good read aloud. But I think the most important thing you can do is have kids love reading, love characters, love the development of those characters, love conflict and resolution. It's everything they need that they haven't had for a long, long time. And those lessons they learn carry them into their next grade level, and it creates readers. And wow, what a gift, right? What a gift to love literacy, learning of characters, learning of who you can be or what you'd like to be more of, or even sometimes less of. So anyway, I just want to talk about that today. So if you have read louds you like, you know, comment on those and leave them down below, so other teachers or third grade teachers can get into those. And I'll leave a list of the ones that I've read in the past that I like a lot. I've also read Princess Bride, but it's really not third grade. And there's a cuss word in it. I'm not going to tell you where it is and what it is, but you can watch it and find out. So anyway, I think that's all I have for that right now. So read aloud to your kids. Find a really good chapter book. They'll love you for it.